Generations of brave Americans fought and died for what we're doing here tonight. And I want to talk about brave for a second, because I like to describe brave as somebody, usually a soldier in combat, doing something that they didn't have to do. I've talked to Medal of Honor recipients who didn't have to risk their lives and do it, but they did it anyway. And I'm here to say these are some brave people behind us, and you're brave as well. Sheriff Terry Maketa didn't have to stand up and be counted. He could have said, I'm not a legislator. Not my job. Could have said, you know what? It is not my job. I'm not a legislator. They pass the laws. I enforce the laws. And he had the guts to stand up in front of a nation. And now it is catching hold in other states as well. And to have other brave sheriffs stand behind him and say, but hold on, we're not going to enforce laws that aren't constitutional. So I want you to think about something. They're brave and they're heroes because they didn't have to do it. But there was another more sinister didn't have to do it, and that's what took place in Denver. John Morris, state legislators, and a governor didn't have to do it. If their goal was to make Colorado safer, they could have talked to these sheriffs. They could have found good legislation. They could have talked to the legislators that are in this room and come up with something that solved problems instead of pushed an agenda. But I know I'm looking at people here in front of me and behind me who see a problem, and we fix a problem when we see it. We don't just let it go on and grouse about it and be angry about it. Are you angry? All right, that's good, because I am too, and a lot of people are angry. But I want to talk to you about what feels good. And this is not about what feels good, because when you're angry, yelling feels good. But that's not what's going to solve this problem. These men up here have got a solution. There are other solutions. These men have got a plan that will solve this problem. And I'm here to tell you, nothing feels as good, and it feels better than yelling. It feels better than being angry. Victory and winning and doing the right thing. Jon Caldara, the Independence Institute.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator John Morse said of we gun owners that there's a sickness in our souls. With that, I'd like to say, welcome, perverts. It's good to see you. The Independence Institute is a think tank, and for the last 27 years has been shining a light towards individual liberty and personal freedom. We have been on the forefront of protecting and expanding Second Amendment rights since that time. I've got to tell you, nothing have I ever seen like this last legislative session. I have never seen such a power grab. I've never seen such an insult to a lifestyle. And we, gun owners, we have a lifestyle we're proud of. It's true, some might not understand our lifestyle. Some might even be a little scared of our lifestyle. But I find it curious how in a legislative session where we talked about others' lifestyles and making it fair for them, which I think is fine, our lifestyles are now criminal activities. The Independence Institute decided to take action. I couldn't be more humbled by seeing what happened this year. As Richard said, these guys, 62 sheriffs, had absolutely nothing to gain by standing up and saying, this is bad, this is wrong, this is unenforceable, and it's dangerous. They didn't have to do that. In fact, they pay a price. I don't know why they did this, but when we saw that, we said, we will stand with you, sheriffs. As we go through a little bit of information tonight. We want to hear from 3 of those brave sheriffs. We want to hear from David Kopel, the lead attorney for the effort that will bring down these unconstitutional laws. I want to plant one seed. Sometimes forces of command and control overreach. I believe that's what happened. I'm depressed about what happened during this session, but I have never, in my 2 decades plus as a political activist, been more excited, more proud, and seen more possibility. What the legislature did and what our governor signed is our Alamo, and we will never forget it. Our goal tonight is to bring you up to date on the inner workings of the lawsuit, what we expect, what our legal arguments are, and our plan, our counterattack. And the counterattack is on board. The Independence Institute became ground zero during this debate. Our headquarters just a few blocks away was the center of activity as legislators and police officers and sheriffs all came together along with activist groups, shooting groups, disabled groups to try to fight this. In my 2 decades of political work, I have never seen us come together on an issue better. I have never seen the politics of addition work so well as it is working right now. I am proud to be a Coloradan, and I am proud to stand here with you. I want to introduce Amy Oliver Cook, who's our Executive Vice President, who took a lead role in what happened at the Capitol and the true successes we've had. Amy, why don't you come up here and say hi?
Thank you, El Paso County, for having us. As somebody who works in Denver, it's a pleasure to be in friendly company. As Jon said, I'm the Executive Vice President of the Independence Institute, and we do, as you know, public policy. But it was interesting when I was having a conversation with Jon, and I got very worked up about these bills. And I don't usually, I get worked up, but I don't usually take it so personally. And when I saw bill after bill after bill pass out of committee, I felt like I'd been kicked in the stomach. This one's personal. And ladies, you know what I mean. You know exactly what I mean. This one's personal. And here's why. Several years ago, I was in my driveway, and I had no way of knowing that a gentleman, well, I shouldn't call him a gentleman at the time, but this was somebody that I knew. I had no way of knowing he had just been released from a 72-hour psych hold. He came to my house, onto my driveway, where I was with my then 16-year-old daughter, and began making threats. The only way I could get out of that was to make her back up the car toward him so that he would move away. I ended up testifying at a hearing to commit this person, and the defense attorney asked me this question. He said, "Were you scared?" And I said, "I was terrified, but I will never be terrified again." At the state capitol, when I heard victims of sexual assault begging state lawmakers not to disarm them with their votes, ladies, it is personal. It is our body, it is our gun, it is our choice. I want to recognize just a couple of women real quick. One is somebody you all know down in El Paso County, Laura Carno from I Am Created Equal. I feel like Laura, and I don't know, Laura, if you're around, Laura has been on the front lines of this battle, as you all know, and we greatly appreciate everything she has done. And then also, there's a group, and I think they have a table in the back, a Girl and a Gun Club, Sharon and Nikki. Thank you. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing the sheriffs, and there's a reason for that, and you'll find that out in just a moment. I have a close relationship with at least one of them. But before we get to that, I'll let you figure out which one. First of all, I do want to recognize some other members of law enforcement who are here. We have Weld County DA Ken Buck, Police Chief from Green Mountain Falls, Tim Bradley. And then one of the 55 sheriffs, not up on the stage, but sitting right here, Mike Ensminger. And his lovely wife, Maria. All right. One thing you ought to know is that the three sheriffs that are up here on stage, they got a few more votes than John Morse did. John Morse got a total of 13,451 votes. These three gentlemen up here, 156,384 votes. I think they represent a few more people. All right, without further ado, let's get to the sheriffs. First, I'd like to introduce from Larimer County, Justin Smith, with 26 years of law enforcement experience and a graduate of the National Academy of the FBI. Larimer County, Justin Smith.
Good evening, El Paso County. Thank you so much, number one, for your warm welcome as we came down here tonight. But thanks even more because you stood up. You said enough is enough. You said that you would stand up not only for your rights, but for the rights of generations to come. We applaud you for what you are doing and will do over the coming months, supporting your sheriffs as we fight these unconstitutional laws. You'll notice in recent weeks, since the sheriffs came forward, we loved it in the beginning. We were the three rogue sheriffs in the beginning. Well, as three became 10 and 20 and 40 and 55, they couldn't label us rogue anymore. However, it's kind of hard to have 90% of you go rogue. It doesn't work. However, the progressive left in the press continues to come after us, and as you'll hear more details, as we've moved forward on this, if you'll notice the things that are written, you'll rarely find any attempt to take us on the facts, attempts to really address the Heller case or the McDonald case. These are personal attacks against the sheriffs. They don't have the facts, so they will continue the attacks. Keep that in mind. Don't be deterred. I can tell you the sheriffs have not been deterred. When we moved forward, when we stood up in January at our sheriff's conference, we had a good idea of what was about to be unleashed upon the citizens of Colorado. We took a short roll call. We knew quickly where we stood with the citizens of Colorado, and I can tell you we were underestimated by those in the legislature, those from Washington that said, hey, we'll break Colorado, we'll push through, and we'll get these laws in 2013, and then in 14 and 15, we'll finish the plan. Well, the sheriffs were not a part of their plan because as they put the pressure, they found that we absolutely doubled down on our commitment to stand with you and stand for your rights. Real quickly, I know there's a lot of other current and former law enforcement folks in the crowd. Anybody that's worked for a police department, a sheriff's office, state patrol, any other law enforcement, please stand up for me. I know you're in here. An important point to let you know is that these ladies and gentlemen represent a silenced majority. When these laws were pushed through, it came with an agenda that said, oh, all law enforcement's forced for these laws, except for a few rogue sheriffs. Not. What the truth is, and I can tell you, each one of the sheriffs have been approached by not only local city police officers, state troopers, federal agents, Denver police officers that came up, and we each have individual stories. They came forward and they told us, you know what? We're not allowed to speak out on these. We disagree with what's going on, but we've been silenced by our employers. And I think we've seen that pattern in Washington with those who wanted to stand up against unconstitutional actions. Well, I can tell you, we're standing up to lead the other peace officers. They know true north, and they'll be following the sheriffs as we move true north in this fight. A couple of things as I wrap up and pass this on to the next sheriff is 3 years ago I was honored to be elected the sheriff up in Larimer County, and one of the things that we did, we came together through our Sheriff's Association. All the new sheriffs came together to be trained really what it meant, the depth of what it meant to be a sheriff. And Mike Insminger from Teller, if you'd stand up for me, Mike, that you recognized earlier. I can tell you, Mike and I were in that same class of 17 sheriffs, and that message was not lost on any of those 17 new sheriffs. Together as 55 sheriffs, including all the new sheriffs, we stand together, standing for your rights. We know this is our time, your time. This is our place, your place, and this is our call and your call. We are honored to stand beside all of you. Thank you for coming out tonight.
And now more for my personal relationships. I'd like to introduce a man with 34 years of law enforcement experience and also a graduate of the FBI National Academy. And in full disclosure, my husband, Weld County Sheriff Jon Cook.
Thanks, honey. Well, before I get started, I'd like to introduce my Bureau Chief of Operations, Steve Reams. Please stand up. He drove all the way down from Greeley with me. Hopefully he'll be the next sheriff of Weld County. Well, I got to tell you, this is great. Good evening, El Paso County. This is an awesome site. I feel like back in Weld County. You know, it's very similar. You know, the political landscape is the same, the morality is the same, the spirituality is the same, but more importantly, the people are the same. You are people that stand up and believe in freedom. And I can't tell you how appreciative I am of that and how much I appreciate the people of Weld County and the people of El Paso County for putting this on. You know. Yeah, this started back in January when I got a call from the Greeley Tribune reporter and said, hey, Obama put out 23 edicts. What are you going to do about them? I said, I'm not going to do a darn thing about them. One, they're unenforceable. Two, they're unconstitutional. And I'm not going to help them. Thank you. Well, that got reprinted in the Denver Post on the next day. And then, on I believe it was a Sunday or Monday, their editorial came out, what Justin mentioned, about rogue sheriffs. Sheriffs going rogue on guns. I love the Denver Post because every time they do this, it just makes us stronger. Well, now Denver Post, there's 55 rogue sheriffs, and I want to show you something else. And if there's a camera that can zoom in on this so everybody can see it, the yellow are the sheriffs that have joined the lawsuit. "55 sheriffs out of 62 elected sheriffs. Sheriffs that have put their name on the line, their credibility on the line, and their reputation and their political career on the line. You know, when I started getting all the information from the sheriffs on who wants to join the lawsuit that was coming in daily, I kind of thought of Benjamin Franklin when he said, "We all better hang together or surely we'll hang separately." So thank goodness for the 55 sheriffs. You know, I get asked a lot, why are we doing this? And what I said in the press conference was, if not us, who? If not now, when? Because if it's not the sheriffs, who else is better to stand up for you than the sheriffs of this town, of this state? I love showing this prop. When everything kind of hit the fan, I started getting emails. I got thank you cards, I got letters, phone calls. This stack here is the stack from supporters who said, "You're doing the right thing, keep it up." This is the stack from people who told me to go do something that's physically and humanly impossible to myself. We are on the right path. We are the ones that are correct in this. You know, then there's Governor Hickenlooper. Yeah, my sentiments too. But Governor Hickenlooper really does not like rural Coloradoans. You know, if you don't live in Denver, you're a rural Coloradoan. I don't care if you live in Colorado Springs or Greeley, you're a rural Coloradoan. About 3 years ago, he gave an interview, and he told the interviewer that people in Wyoming are a lot like the people of rural Colorado. They're backward thinkers. It's on the YouTube. I suggest you check it out. Well, when he signed the gun bills, he also said this is a rural versus urban issue. And so therefore he thinks if you own a gun and you don't live in Denver, you're a backward thinker. Now, the Denver Post comes to his aid, as only the Denver Post can. I've got a question for you. I want to see a show of hands. How many people here live in a city limits, whether it's Colorado Springs, Manitou Springs, it doesn't matter. If you live inside of city limits. Well, that's pretty good, pretty good. Okay, how many people here that lived in the city limits voted for the sheriff in what the county they live in? Okay, all righty. Well, let me ask you this then. Who speaks for you when it comes to your gun rights? Is it the police chief or is it the sheriff? Exactly. Well, not according to the Denver Post. The Denver Post, in a blog by the editor, Curtis Hubbard, he wrote, "Sheriff's gun laws lawsuit. How many people in Colorado do they really represent anyway?" Yeah. See, then he goes on to explain, you see, incorporated communities are represented by police chiefs, and as it turns out, their organizations actually supported the recent gun control bills. I say he's wrong, and the governor's wrong. It is not about rural versus urban. Now, this lawsuit is about the Constitution, and it's about public safety. These bills do nothing for public safety. They hinder public safety, in my opinion. You know, law enforcement has to set priorities and resources. And as the sheriff, and I know the other sheriffs agree with me, and the other 54 sheriffs also agree, they have to set priorities. Their priorities are a lot like mine. Their priorities are putting the murderers in jail, it's putting the rapists in jail, the child molesters in jail, the burglars, the thieves, the drug dealers. It's not about putting law-abiding citizens in jail, which these laws want to do. You know, this lawsuit transcends everything. It transcends whether you live in the city or whether you live in rural Colorado. It transcends actually whether you work for a sheriff's office or work for a police department. There was a recent survey by Police One magazine that interviewed 15,000 cops nationwide, and they were line-level officers. They weren't desk pushers like me or pencil pushers. They actually were out there dealing with the criminals on the street. 95% of them said a magazine bill is bad news and that it should not be passed. Another 91% said that the ban on assault weapons would make criminals, or said that it would have no effect on public safety and it would be a negative effect on law enforcement if we banned assault weapons. So it transcends that. It transcends political parties, age, gender, race. This lawsuit is about our freedoms, and that's why we as sheriffs are standing up here, because it's about our freedoms, it's about our rights, and it's about our liberties, and it's about our right to self-protection. That's what this lawsuit's about. So, I want to thank you again, El Paso County. You're a great crowd. Awesome. Thank you.
Next, I know he doesn't need an introduction in this crowd, but I do want to say, first of all, before I introduce him, I'd like to introduce his lovely wife, Vicki Maketa. That's 26 years. Yeah, I didn't realize you were that old. 26 years of service in the sheriff's office, FBI National Academy graduate. He won El Paso County with 81.1% of the vote. Sheriff Terry Maketa.
Boy, I really do have a lot to say, so I'm going to challenge myself to keep it within the next hour. You know, when we did this event up in Larimer County, which I got to say was a huge success, thanks in part to Justin, but the order of the sheriff speaking was a little different, and my good friend, and I honestly mean that when I say my good friend John Cook, was the last one to speak. But we decided to protect him this time and let him go second, because when he spoke last up in Larimer, his beautiful wife hooked him around the neck and pulled him away from the mic. And I wanted to hear what he had to say, so wasn't that great? All right. I also really need to thank the staff at the Expo, Freedom Financial Expo Center, Captain Kurt, if you'll raise your hand. Thank you for hosting this event. And we do have so many people in the audience, but today is kind of another one of those high water marks, and something that I'm actually very proud of, and that is that I work with a very good group of Board of County Commissioners, and those county commissioners made a firm statement today when they voted unanimously to support me and my role with the other 55 sheriffs that are taking these gun bills to court. And what I would like to do is ask our commissioners that are present to please stand and accept my appreciation for you standing with me and the other 54 sheriffs that said, this is wrong, we're not standing by silently. Us backwards thinkers, at least we hang with good company, since that's what the governor kind of thinks of us as. We also have, I think I saw our 4th Judicial District, which is El Paso and Teller County, District Attorney sneak in somewhere. Where is he? Oh, there he is in the back. Thanks for being here, Dan. And I know we also have other elected officials that stand with the backwards thinking sheriffs. Would all of you please stand so that we can give you a round of applause and thank you. You know what's coming, right? You guys are pretty smart. Thank you for all the support and all the emails. I personally find them very inspiring and motivational. You know, I want to share just a couple things that put these bills in perspective and the emotion that I felt behind them. Number one, I've been participating in the legislative process now for 12, 13 years. I've been to the Capitol, I've appeared before committees, and to be honest, I've won some and I've lost some. I've given input, had some of it taken into consideration, and other times had it completely ignored. But the fact is, over those 13 years, every time I had the opportunity. I had the opportunity as not only an elected official serving as sheriff, but I had the opportunity as a citizen. That did not happen on these bills. That's why we have to resort to the courts. And it wasn't only my voice that was suppressed, the voice of John Cook or Justin Smith or any of the other 51, 52 sheriffs. It was the hundreds and hundreds of citizens that were ignored, and the process was changed, and the outcome are bad laws. Now, is what they hope for and is what they prey on is for people to do nothing about it, to continue going home, sitting around your dinner table and griping about what an injustice it is. And we said no, no more. And when I get asked, by people, Sheriff, what can we do? Your voice is making a difference. Every email you send, every time you speak up, and now they're getting desperate and they're wishing we would go away. And if you look around this room, people are not going away. The momentum is building. And I like the way Jon Caldara put it. The sheriff said no, and this is our Alamo. The battleground is here in Colorado. And it wasn't you or I that picked this as the battleground. It was the East Coast gun grabbers and their big money that funded and wrote the legislation that even the legislators could not explain when challenged on it. That's why they haven't even, we made the lawsuit public. We said, here's the issues we have. How many articles or news coverage have you seen where they have gone to those individuals that were responsible for passing these bills and asked them to respond to what we laid out there. We've been open and transparent, and what have we got? We've got the typical rhetoric of, Sheriff, you're being illegal, sending that email out, letting employees know they can come here and learn about things. That's what we get. We've gone rogue. Here's the most recent one I heard from a senator that comes from this county that I won't even give him the honor of mentioning his name. There are a very small group of people that don't want to see these laws passed. Really? Is he in touch with his electors or anyone else on this planet? No. He is bought and paid for. And I have no problem saying that, because if you track the money, it takes you to the criminals. Thank you. Thank you. Now I know people are out there going, oh geez, did he just call somebody a criminal? Yeah, I did. And if my prediction is correct, a person who I've come to admire, respect, and who has given me a lot of hope is going to explain that little slip of why I call them criminals. But let me share a story about these gun bills. I was sitting around the dinner table with my wife and a neighbor down the street. And he, like so many members of our community, is serving our country. He was coming up on a 3-year deployment. His commitment to our military and serving our country cost him his first marriage. He is now engaged to a wonderful woman. We're sitting around talking, and he's kind of poking at me and ribbing me. He's not allowed to speak out because of federal laws and so forth. And I noticed his wife was very quiet. My wife is a very good trainer. I've learned to pick up on non-communication skills. And I said to myself, something isn't right here. And I decided to go against what common sense told me and invite her into the conversation. She was looking away, and right as I said, I turned to her and I said, Trish, what do you think of the background check bill? And right as I said that, in slow motion out the corner of my eye, I saw my friend, who is still active duty in the military and is deployed right now, say no. She turned to me and said, Terry, I love you to death, but I don't understand what your issue is with this. And I said very simply, I looked at her fiance and I said, you're getting ready to go away for 3 months. He says, yeah. I said, are you going to leave a firearm for your fiance to protect herself? He said, absolutely. She almost simultaneously said, he better. And I said to her, do you realize if you don't get a background check and it's after July 1, that you're breaking the law? And she just stared at me, and I asked the male, Troy, I said, Troy, does your firearm the magazine contain more than 15 rounds? He said, yeah. And I said, now you're violating a second law because you're transferring a magazine containing more than 15 rounds. I said, do you see what my problem is now? Well, she reversed her role and was furious that our legislators would criminalize law-abiding citizens simply trying to protect themselves. And I ask, is this who we should be targeting? A patriot? People who have served our country? People who go away and fight and put their life on the line to restore the freedoms to foreign people, and when they come home, they don't have those same rights even though they live as a law-abiding citizen? That's where it went wrong. That's what they cannot defend. They have lied to the citizens by saying, oh, 90% of people support background checks. No, duh. We have background checks. Hello. That's what this is about. And I share that one example because it'll happen every day. And maybe law enforcement will never know. After all, they are unenforceable. We can't go search in everybody's home or check every time somebody goes on vacation to see what weapons they left with who. It's absolutely absurd, especially when we're focused on real criminals. That's who we should be focused on. And that's my point, and that's why I feel so strongly about this. And that's why I'm honored to be joined by people like John Cook, Justin Smith, and the many other sheriffs that are walking hand in hand, arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder with each of us. And we will continue doing it for you. So thank you very much.
All right. Can you see why it was such an easy decision for those of us at the Independence Institute to say we're going to stand behind our sheriffs? These are brave men and women that serve you, and I couldn't be more proud. I want to get into the meat of this. And it's not just a law that's bad because we don't like it. It's a bad law because it's unenforceable and it's unconstitutional. In the coming months, Dave Kopel, our research director at the Independence Institute, will be leading the legal team to take on this case. And he will weave in the founder's intent, the legal problems, how it is not part of law enforcement's job, and how they are unenforceable. It has been a real treat, and I don't know if you realize what an honor it is to have Dave Kopel at the Independence Institute. We believe politicians and many of us get very excited about the next election. The Independence Institute, we're very excited about the next decade. We take a long and slow approach. And for the last 20 years, it's been Dave Kopel at the forefront of that intellectual argument that has brought us concealed carry and has brought us the great decisions in the Supreme Court, which for the first time in our nation's history made it clear what we already knew, that the Second Amendment is an individual right, not some collective right. I want to bring Dave up to explain the nuances of the case, how we got there, and how we plan to win. Dave Kopel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been told to make a few announcements first. First of all, tonight's attendance is 815. Second, I was asked to remind all of you that copies of my book are available for sale back there. And third, Sheriff Maketa, I guess, sort of indirectly asked me to clarify his remarks on the criminals follow the money thing. And it sounded to me like a powerful metaphor in the same sense that if somebody says, I am the door, you are the rock, it does not mean literally that I actually have a handle on me and I'm a room divider and you're made out of basalt. It's figurative language. I know you all appreciate how much the 55 sheriffs in this case are doing to stand up for your right to arms right now. I want to let you inform, some of you don't know how much they've been doing for a long time. The Concealed Carry Act, which was enacted by the strong bipartisan majority of the legislature in 2003, was the sheriff's bill. It implemented the practices that have been adopted by Sheriff Jim Alderton and adopted then voluntarily by most other sheriffs in the state. And it was the sheriffs making the decision to support this as a statewide measure, which after a long battle and a lot of resistance by the gun prohibition folks, finally resulted in a statewide uniform concealed carry, fair licensing law for concealed carry. And that, by the way, is made all the difference in the world, because when that attack happened a few years ago in December at the New Life Church, it was because of that concealed carry law that Jeannie Hassan was in there and saved 100 lives. Not too long ago, the Concealed Carry Act, when it was in the legislature, there was an amendment on in the floor of the Colorado House to say, well, okay, but not on college campuses. And that amendment was overwhelmingly rejected in the House. And yet, the University of Colorado continued to defy the Concealed Carry Act. And they had this legal theory that since, well, the University of Colorado is mentioned in the Colorado Constitution, that basically nothing that the legislature enacts applies to them unless the legislature specifically says, oh, and also for the University of Colorado. It was the Mother May I rule of legislation. Well, Students for Concealed Carry, with the Mountain States Legal Foundation representing them, brought a suit on that. They lost in a trial court, won 2-1 in the Colorado Court of Appeals, and then the CU Regents voted narrowly to appeal the case to the Colorado Supreme Court. And then in the Colorado Supreme Court, the county sheriffs of Colorado filed an amicus brief, which I wrote, and explained why the interests of law enforcement and public safety were on the side of licensed carry by responsible, trained adults who have been through a fingerprint-based background check, through a safety training class, and on top of that have the additional safeguard that the sheriff has the discretion to deny even someone with a clean record if the sheriff believes that person would be a danger to himself or others. And the brief was mentioned in the oral arguments in the Supreme Court, and it helped I think it helped a Colorado Supreme Court, which sometimes has strong ideological divisions, come to a unanimous 7-0 decision to uphold the Concealed Carry Act as it was written and say that the University of Colorado has to obey it. Well, that decision was handed down in the spring of 2012, and of course in the next legislative session, there was an attempt to change the Concealed Carry Act and create a law actually forbidding licensed carry at college campuses. And again, your sheriffs were there, and they testified against it in the Senate, and their testimony was one of the things that, to everyone's shock, led to the bill losing so much support that it was withdrawn on the floor of the Senate because the sponsor couldn't even bear to bring it up for a vote, knowing it would be a certain loss. So this case proves that Alexander Hamilton was right back when he was urging people to ratify the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution did something radical that had never been done in the history of politics before, and in fact it was thought by political scientists to be an actual impossibility. And that was a system of divided sovereignty. Everywhere else, you had either unified national sovereignty, like the monarchs of France or the Parliament of the King of England, one sovereign over the whole country, or you had a country that might be a confederation of autonomous states, like the Swiss Confederation, where the individual cantons in the confederation had the sovereignty. But the Constitution did something entirely new. It said, sovereignty, of course, resides in the people and belongs to them. And they can divide their sovereignty, and they can give some of it to a national government, which should have all the powers to do the things that a national government needs to do for the national interest and for national security. And yet they can keep some of that other sovereignty and have that reside in the states. And they can keep some of the other sovereignty for themselves as their own reserved powers. Never been done in the history of the world. It was, as Justice Kennedy called it, it was splitting the atom of sovereignty. One of the reasons that Hamilton urged people to ratify the Constitution with this radical new system was because he said this will be the best security of the rights of the people. Sometimes you'll have the state governments and you'll have the national government. Well, when either one of them begins to violate the people's rights, the people can then appeal to the other for their protection. So we've had many cases where state governments violated people's rights through things like Jim Crow laws, and the national government stepped forward to do something about it. And conversely, there have been times when the state governments or the national government has violated people's rights and states governments have stood up. And this dynamic has been one of the geniuses of the American founding. And that's exactly what we're doing here, is we are filing this case in a federal district court, asking the court to enforce our national civil rights. Because in our system of government, no state has the authority to violate the national civil rights of any citizen. Now that this Hamiltonian genius and Madison too, of the US Constitution is copied here in Colorado, because we're not like New Jersey, which in some respects is sort of like an elective monarchy, where in New Jersey, for example, you elect the governor, and the governor appoints the district attorneys of all the counties. In Colorado, like in most states, the people reserve for themselves the power of directly choosing their leading law enforcement officers. They elect the district attorneys and they elect the sheriffs directly. And that means the sheriff's power and their authority comes not through appointment, but directly from the people themselves, and they represent you. Joining the sheriffs in this case is a stellar array of the best of what Colorado's about. The Colorado Farm Bureau is a plaintiff in this case. Another plaintiff is Outdoor Buddies, the leading organization in the state that helps disabled people participate in the outdoor sports. And by the way, in our case, besides the Second and 14th Amendments, we also, and this is for the first time ever done in a gun case, we directly raise claims under Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we argue that even if these bills were constitutional, which they're not, but even if they were constitutional for the general population, the Americans with Disabilities Act requires the state of Colorado to offer disabled people a reasonable accommodation, and that means that if a person, for example, is in a wheelchair, so that if they're attacked in their home, they don't have the easier mobility to retreat to a bedroom or behind a place of protection. And likewise, they may not, because they can't retreat so readily, it's harder for them to change a magazine safely, and they also might have a disability, such as only having one arm, that makes it extremely difficult to change a magazine while under criminal attack. And so they are entitled to an accommodation which makes sure that when they're in their home and if they're attacked, that they will be able to have a magazine that is functional fully to provide all the protection they need to save their own lives and that of their family. We're also joined by the Colorado Outfitters Association, the Professional Association of Colorado's Hunting and Outdoor Guides, and they know that although there was lip service paid to hunting in the state capitol, that these bills have a direct and catastrophic effect on hunting in our state. And it'll have a horrible, horrible economic impact in rural areas, in loss of out-of-state hunters. And then there's the Colorado State Shooting Association, the governing body for the shooting sports in Colorado, 8 different federal firearms licensees, Magpul, the manufacturer of high-quality magazines, and the National Shooting Sports Foundation, the trade association for the entire firearms industry. The case is filed in federal district court, and if you want to file a case in federal district court in Colorado, there's only one place to do it, and that's in Denver. Attorney General Suthers, to his credit, on the day we filed the suit, issued a statement saying that he hoped the case would be resolved expeditiously because it was important to resolve the legal uncertainty, and that it was especially important for the interests of Colorado's law-abiding gun owners. And good for him for saying that. The court, I think, recognizes what we've said in our complaint, what Attorney General Suthers has also said, that this is a momentous issue of grave and immediate danger among the lives and the rights of the people of Colorado. And so we filed a case on a Friday, and just a few days later, we got an order from the magistrate. The magistrate is the person who assists the federal district judge in case management, that the magistrate has ordered us to have a status conference in court 2 days from now. That is a rare thing when you file a civil case in federal court, and less than 2 weeks later, you're standing in front of the magistrate on a status conference. So that is a good sign that the court recognizes this is an important issue that deserves prompt attention. We've also made tremendous progress already simply by the creation of this case. The week before Governor Hickenlooper signed the bill, Jon Caldara did what he's good at, which was do a 2-minute video on YouTube communicating the message in a very simple way and showing how under this law, this bill, which says not only are magazines of more than 15 banned, but so is anything that is designed to be readily converted to hold more than 15. And he just took out a magazine and showed how you can take off the floor plate, also sometimes called the base plate. You can take off the floor plate and you can put on an extender. And so now your 13-round magazine holds 16 rounds. Doesn't matter if your magazine, if you don't even own an extender, if you don't even know what an extender is. The point is that magazine would be illegal. Channel 9 caught the notice. There was a lot of YouTube attention to this, and so they did a story. They went to a large gun store in Aurora and asked the guy, well, how many of your magazines that you sell here are like this, with removable base plates? And the answer was, well, almost all of them. And so then they went to Representative Fields, the sponsor of the magazine ban, and also talked to the governor's office. And what Channel 9 reported back was, yeah, the governor knows this language is in the bill. He knows what it does, and he's just hoping that these people in Colorado will be able to buy other magazines of the type they make in, New York, with a. But the point was, it was going to not only control the future magazines you can buy, to say you can't buy a 13-round magazine because it would mean not only in the future can you not buy a 13-round magazine that has a removable base plate. It would also mean that your 13-round magazine, which is grandfathered in because you owned it on July 1st, there was another requirement that to be grandfathered, you had to have not only ownership of the magazine, that's pretty straightforward, but you also had to keep continuous possession. And so we continue to raise these issues, and on the Tuesday before the governor was going to make the day the governor was making the decision about whether to sign the bills or not, the governor's office called me, and we talked about this. And there was a policy disagreement, but there wasn't a legal disagreement. We were all in accord about what this meant. And the scenario I walked through is something they understood and agreed that it was this way. So you have the husband who has the Smith & Wesson pistol with a 13-round magazine. He leaves town for a week to go on a business trip. Gives the handgun to his wife for protection. He can give her the handgun, no problem. That's not within the scope of the background check law. But he can't give her the 13-round magazine. And the answer from the governor's staff is, well, she'll just have to buy a different magazine. That's where we were. That's what the governor knowingly signed. He signed the bill just before lunchtime. A few hours later, we announced the lawsuit. And as the word of the lawsuit spread, I think it became clear that this was going to be a formidable lawsuit. I'm not sure the governor's office expected 55 sheriffs, but he knew there would be at least some of them. And so he told the governor, he told the attorney general, write some guidance on this. Guidance has no guidance. If you've ever litigated on EPA guidance or anything else, guidance has no legal binding effect. It's not like a regulation. It has no legal force. It's a suggestion. But that guidance, the Attorney General came out with the guidance shortly after we actually filed the lawsuit a couple of weeks ago. And in that guidance, he essentially interprets the designed to be readily converted language as having no legal force. He's saying basically that means you have to do that by an objective standard, and the objective standard means if it has more than 15 rounds, well, so fine. So we've then, with this Attorney General's guidance, just gotten rid of the single most oppressive and extreme part of the law. It's been prematurely conceded as being unenforceable, unintelligible, and not really the law. And that's because we filed the suit, that we now have we knew the suit was coming, that we've had a 180-degree change from the governor's position of only a few weeks before. And the Attorney General's guidance also has a exception they import into the continuous possession language, which means if, let's say, you have your 17-round magazine, well, you can at least, they say, oh, that continuous possession is not interrupted as long as you give the magazine to somebody and they're in your continuous presence. So, for example, two people could share a gun on a magazine on a firing line at a target range, and that's good. They say, well, and likewise, you could give the gun to a gunsmith. Well, that's true for all those gunsmiths who operate drive-up while you wait services. If the gunsmith will work on your gun while you sit at the counter and watch, fine. But it still means, this continuous thing means when you take your 17-round, when you take your gun, which is malfunctioning, and has a 17-round magazine that it goes with, and you bring that to the gunsmith, and the gunsmith needs the magazine to test the operation of the gun. In fact, he can't do it if you're ever going to leave the gunsmith's shop. And those folks who've dealt with gunsmiths know that it's usually a matter of weeks because parts have to be ordered. And so the continuous possession ban still operates as, in practice, a ban on the repair of firearms. And it also means, by the way, of course, if you have your gun with your 17-round magazine, you still can't leave that with your wife when you go out of town because you're no longer in her continuous presence. The case we are bringing is a narrow and moderate one, and that's one of the reasons that there were 55 sheriffs signing on to this. This is the opposite of one of those cases where some guy brings something because it offends his feelings, and his main legal argument is, what part of shall not be infringed, don't you understand? That's a nice saying, but it's not a winning legal argument in a federal district court in 2013. That's not the way we won District of Columbia versus Heller, in which I wrote an amicus brief that was cited by Justice Breyer's opinion multiple times. And I served on the oral argument it was an amicus brief for a large coalition of law enforcement led by the two major law enforcement training organizations in the country. And I also served on the oral argument team helping Alan Gura in the Supreme Court oral argument. We didn't win that case by saying things that are emotionally satisfying and that everything is absolute and that's the end of it, and if you don't get that, judge, well, you're just stupid. That's not our approach. And our judge in this case is not stupid. Judge Marcia Krieger is a very highly respected, intelligent, rigorous, by the book, no BS kind of judge, which is the kind of judge one would want in a life or death case like this. Judge Marcia Krieger, who was appointed in 2001 formerly served on the bankruptcy court, and her father also had a long and distinguished career as a judge on the Colorado Court of Appeals. What we're aiming to prove in this case is not a law school seminar where we try to figure out the outer contours and all the gray areas of the Second Amendment. We are aiming to prove solely what we need to win this particular case against these particular bills. So, for example, on the magazine ban, District of Columbia versus Heller says what you can't ban is arms that are typically owned by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes. So we're going to prove what is indisputable, that handgun magazines of 16 to 20 rounds and up to 30 rounds for rifles are standard capacity magazines for some of the most popular firearms today. And the sheriffs are going to explain to the court that the reason sheriffs and their deputies have magazines of that size is for precisely the same reason that they want the people in their jurisdiction to be able to choose to have magazines of that size, because so often they are the best choice for the lawful protection of innocent human life. Now you can how many people in this room either own a magazine of more than 15 rounds or know a good person who does? Well, according to the House sponsor of the magazine ban and the Senate sponsor of the magazine ban, presenting their bills to the legislature, they said the only reason for a magazine of more than 15 rounds is to murder a lot of people quickly. And that's why they said the only place those should be allowed is on the battlefield. And supposedly because, and also for law enforcement, because apparently they think that law enforcement officers want to kill a lot of people quickly. In court, the sheriffs and the other plaintiffs will refute this blood libel against the law-abiding, peaceable citizens of Colorado. On the background checks bill, yes, background checks are popular in the opinion polls when you ask it the question the right way. But we're going to talk about what's actually in this particular bill, about how it's not only about background checks on the actual sale of firearms, but on temporary and innocent transfers of firearms. If your friend's visiting from out of state and he brought a gun to go hunting and then the gun is broken or malfunctioning and he wants to borrow your gun for 4 days to go hunting, that would be an 18-month misdemeanor for both of you if you lend him your gun for that. Or if here's a situation that was actually discussed in the Senate. Boy Scout leaders borrow some guns from their friends, take the scouts up to a national forest, go hunting, don't go hunting, go and set up a safe target range and camp for several days. And under the supervision of the scout leaders, the scouts are taught responsible gun use and safety. And it was pointed out by, I believe, Senator Cadman, how that becomes illegal without every scout in the pack going through a background check for every single gun. And the sponsor of the background check bill in the Senate said, well, we do have this 72-hour exception, so maybe let's just hope the scouts get back within 72 hours. Well, what if it takes them 74 hours? Or what if they want to go for 4 or 5 days? And likewise, what if someone in your neighborhood, a woman, is the victim of a stalker who's threatening her and menacing her, and you want to loan her your gun, and maybe in one of these times when the Colorado instant background check is taking 9 days, she can't get a gun, she can't buy a gun on her own right away. Well, you can lend it to her for 72 hours, but after that, You're both criminals. On the issue of the actual private sale of firearms, we carefully in the suit do not take a position on that constitutional issue per se. But what we do say is that for any law, and especially a law involving the exercise of constitutional rights, and certainly the sale and acquisition of firearms are constitutional rights, that you have to have a law that people can actually obey and comply with. And this system that was enacted by the legislature in House Bill 1229 is not such a system. If you want to sell a gun, you live in a ranch and you want to sell your gun to your neighbor on his ranch, you both have to go to a licensed firearms dealer, a federal firearms licensee. There's not a lot of gun stores in rural areas, and even in urban areas where there are more. And there's also home-based businesses that are federal firearms licensees who don't really want strangers coming to their home. The federal firearms licensee, to do this background check and then process the transfer, the same as if he were selling a firearm out of his own inventory, with pages of paperwork for which he is civilly and criminally liable for errors. All he's allowed to do is charge a $10 fee for that. The 8 firearms stores in our complaint, or in the plaintiffs, we think are like the vast majority of federal firearms licensees, and they will say there is no way it makes any sense for us to process this transaction for people who are not customers, who may spend hours waiting in our store, waiting for this instant background check to happen, and take all the risks associated with that. And there's no way it's worth our time it'd be crazy for us to do it for $10. So as a practical matter, people are not going to have the ability to comply with this law because they won't be able to find federal firearms licensees who will do the checks. Your Colorado sheriffs are national leaders, but they're not the only sheriffs who are standing up for constitutional rights. In New York, Mayor Cuomo rammed Bloomberg language into law in New York in a special emergency procedure in the legislature there, which bypassed all hearings and all public testimony and resulted in a horribly miswritten and incomprehensible bill. A lawsuit was filed against that. The sheriffs, understandably, explained they didn't like it and they thought it was a bad bill, and they were all in favor of reasonable gun controls, but not unreasonable laws that harm public safety and that people can't even know what they're supposed to obey. Governor Cuomo called them in and personally threatened them and told them there would be reprisals if they didn't shut up on guns. And so they listened to what he said, and shortly thereafter, the New York State Sheriff's Association unanimously voted to file an amicus brief in a case against the New York gun bans. Attorney General Suthers, as the Attorney General of the state, has the legal duty to defend every Colorado statute, whether he likes it or not, whether he agrees it or not. He is an outstanding lawyer. He will make the best case possible in defense of these atrocious bills. And there's nothing at all to criticize about him for doing that. But in the broader public arena, the people who are attacking the sheriffs and the other plaintiffs and the rest of us don't have much in the way of facts, because they can't really defend a law that says the husband leaves town, can't leave his gun with its functioning magazine with the wife. They can't defend a law that says lending your gun to a friend for a 4-day hunting trip is something that ought to put you in jail for 18 months and you lose your right to possess arms for the next year. So they come up with these, and they don't know the law anyway, so would have a trouble arguing it even if they bothered to inform themselves. So instead, they're resorting to the last resort of scoundrels. of character assassination and personal attacks. You see the claim that the sheriffs are playing politics. Well, that's kind of a funny claim coming from the side that only got these bills through tiny majorities in the legislature by calling the moderate wavering votes from the White House and saying, you've got to vote for this because it's part of the president's national political agenda. The sheriffs in this case are Democratic, Republican, and independent. They come from all over the political spectrum, from all over the state. Eight of the 9 largest counties in the state with elected sheriffs, small counties, all of big ones, everything in between. They are celebrating diversity. And they stand up for all of us every day. They fight to stop those who would take away your property or who would violate your right to control your own body. And they're doing the same thing now, fighting so that you can keep yourself, your family, and your community safer by having the right tools to protect yourself and your community against violent attackers. Please stand up with us for them in this fight, all the way to victory. Please stand for the rule of law. Thank you.
Hey, I tell you what, we have just a couple quick items of business before we conclude. I've got a couple questions for Dave. I want to give you a personal story. And then the sheriff is going to bribe you for votes by giving away some very impressive prizes, and you don't want to leave that. Apparently that's illegal in some counties, but not in El Paso. I tell you what, Dave, and then I want to leave you with a call for action, because this is a fight of addition. We're going to need your help. First, Dave, let me just ask you 2 quick questions that people are going in. One, will this lawsuit delay the implementation of these laws?
We are having legal strategy sessions on the whole issue of a preliminary injunction, and the answer is, I hope, at least partially.
What about someone who has a restraining order on a domestic complaint, not convicted? Would that person have a time frame to turn in all their guns? Do they have to turn in the guns? What happens with these magazines when someone dies?
Well, under 2 different questions. Under the magazines, if you have a grandfathered magazine, it is completely non-transferable. So when you die, it becomes contraband, and the response of the proponents of this was, well, if the heirs immediately smash the magazine to bits, probably they wouldn't be prosecuted. On the restraining order, I defer to the sheriffs on this one, but under federal law, if you're under a domestic violence restraining order, you can't have guns, and the procedures for how you're supposed to get rid of them are somewhat murky.
Dave, thank you so much. Let me tell you a quick tale. First of all, I live in Boulder, so just consider me the canary in the coal mine. I want to tell you, when I was young, I was one of them. I hated guns. I was scared of guns. I wanted them to go away. I gave what little money I had to an organization called Handgun Control because I wanted this stuff to end. Today, I run an organization that is leading the counteroffensive to keep our Second Amendment rights. How did this happen? How did this happen to me? Now, I wasn't raised in a gun culture. My folks never took us shooting. Wasn't that big of a deal. But I was emotional about this. And I think for people who are anti-gunnies, or not gunnies at all, this gun is a symbol to them. It is a swastika. It's not a piece of machinery. It's an item that somehow has hate, as if it has free will. I bought into that. And then one day, my older brother, Paul, did something that I found scary, terrible, frightful, dangerous. He bought the weapon of choice for most drug lords. He bought a .22 rifle. Now this scared the crap out of me. And he had the nerve to bring it over to my home. I thought he had lost it. I didn't know. Do you call the police? Do you call somebody? What do you do? He showed me the gun. We took it apart, saw the internal safeties, the external safeties. Over time, he took me shooting. Over time, I did some more research. Still not happy about it. But within about a year and a half to 2 years, his calm, patient, consistent education, not arguing, not yelling, started to bring me around. It was because he took the time to speak in a language I could understand, to explain what this really was, and to leave questions for me to answer. I didn't change for a bumper sticker. I didn't change because somebody called talk radio and hurled an insult about anti-gunners. He demystified firearms for me. He took away the emotion that I felt. And a year and a half later, I bought my own .22 rifle. My point being, someone asked, what can we do to help? We have to remember, they look at us as dangerous, freaky, weird, and out of touch. Now, we're very good about talking to ourselves, gunnies especially. We talk about things and calibers and all the rest, and we scare other people. We must remember that our job, if we are to retain these rights, are not to talk to ourselves, but talk to people who can be reasoned with over time. The moral of this story is, what is it we can do? It's that neighbor, it's that relative. It's the one that's pretty intelligent on most things, but doesn't quite get it here. And we need to talk with them. We also need to have different spokespeople. Think of this blew my mind. Out of all the gun bills that were going through, the one that I knew for a fact was going to pass was a ban on concealed carry on college campuses. There was no way that one was going to fail. It failed. We killed it. Why? Because one, we finally worked together. The legislators came to the Independence Institute. They talked with Dave. We brought in the gun groups that sometimes don't get along. We brought in activists, and we all sang off the same choir sheet for the first time that I've ever seen. We didn't have one of those legitimate rape verbal gaffes. In fact, it was the other team that started saying, well, we have call boxes on campus. And sometimes a woman might think she's getting raped when she's not, and use it the wrong way. We had a system there to capture that video and to finally get it engaged in the viral world, and it hurt them. We were there when Evie Hudak said to a rape survivor, oh honey, the statistics aren't with you. It's a good thing you didn't have a gun. He would have taken it and killed you. And that survivor, Amanda Collins, with her beauty and strength, said, Senator, with all due respect, you weren't there. What we were able to do, and I mean we were able to do, is we learned something from the other side. Now, we're factually right all the time. I'm tired of being right. I want to win. In order to win, we must capture the emotional high ground. And with that issue, we captured not just the factual high ground, but the emotional high ground, because we turned it into a woman's issue, which it truly is. We let women lead the fight. They're the ones that demanded that this thing be killed for their own safety, and we won on the one bill we had no chance of winning. because we knew how to sell this. Can we continue this? Can we as gunnies keep the camouflage in the closet, take off the build caps, and put on a sport coat when we go down to talk to our elected officials? Can we convince the women in our lives to take the lead? And can we men actually take the back seat and let them? We can, we will, because winning is more important and getting the emotional hook is crucial. If we beat that one, we can beat the others, but we have to keep this coalition adding members. We have to continue people coming in different groups that may not be like us. We have to work together. It has been so amazing. I believe that this is the most exciting time I've ever seen in Colorado. I believe we are on the precipice of turning to California, and this mistake by the legislature will be seen as the turning point for the whole state if we do this right. I am so touched that in the middle of the week, people like you take time to become educated about what's going on, to get involved, and to help us win. We can win. We need your help. A few things. One, I want you to get more involved with the Independence Institute. In the back, we've got a table. Please give us your name, your address, your email, so we can at least keep this conversation going, so we can continue adding instead of subtracting. I'd like you to, first of all, thank the great staff that put it on, Julie Mallon and Sue Evans and Mary McFarland, and of course, Chair Schaefer, wherever she is. Thank you for putting this together. This has been incredible. Now comes for the ask. Yes, this is an Amway ad, so watch out. We need your help. So far tonight, we've raised $8,000 towards the lawsuit and the educational campaign that revolves around it. Thank you. Thank you so very, very much for doing that. The very lovely and talented Peggy Littleton is going to come up here and model for us an incredible two-piece bikini. Let's say hello to the county commissioners, to be the first in the state, I believe, to pass a resolution supporting this lawsuit. Amy, thank you.
Well, John was right about one thing. That is about women taking the leadership if the guys will step back. Not about the bikini. So Commissioner Lathan sponsored this resolution this morning, a resolution in support of litigation to overturn vague and unenforceable firearms laws. We have two items tonight that are going to be one and onlys, and you have a chance to take these home with you. The first one is already framed, and we're going to have our sheriffs, because I'm sure at some point in time they have taken a class on how to do persuasion, positive persuasion. And we're going to have Sheriff Maketa be on this side right here, Sheriff Cook be in the center, and we can have, Sheriff, did you take the left side? Okay, Sheriff Smith, sorry. I know he wanted to go right. So we're going to have you guys kind of stand in front right here real quick, and we're going to start bidding on this particular item, because I'm not going to let us get out of here tonight in El Paso County without raising at least $10,000 to support this lawsuit, because we want to win. We want to stand behind the sheriffs and behind Dave Kopel and the Independence Institute. So, I'm not an auctioneer. I'm going to try my best this evening. Okay, we're going to start off this one right here with $200. $200 here, $200. Do we hear the... Okay, $1,000. Anybody $1,000? Let's go for $1,000. Anybody $1,000? $1,100. $1,100 for this one and only. $1,100, $1,100. We'll go back down to $5. Let's go back into $500 for this one and only finely framed resolution. Finely framed resolution, $500 right there. Anybody $550? We'll go for $550. $550. $550. Let's go for $600. $600. We see here $600. $1,000. We got $1,000 right up here. Let's go for $1,100. $1,100. Anybody got $1,100 tonight? $1,100. $1,100 once, $1,100 twice. Sold for $1,000 to Paula, Pam Patron. Paul and Pam Patron, stand up. Good job. Paul and Pam Patron. Now, we have a second resolution that is not yet framed, and there's a reason. And this one is going to start off at least, we're starting at a minimum of $1,000 for this one. Commissioner Lathan's going to hold this up. This is a one and only, personally signed by every single one of these fine sheriffs here, Maketa, Smith, and Cook, and by Dave Kopel. This is an original. All of the county commissioners signed this. We just passed this morning. Okay, we're going to start off with $1,000. $1,000. Do I hear $1,000? Come on, you guys. Sheriffs. Okay, $1,000. Do we hear $1,100? $1,100 right here. We got, okay, $1,200. We'll go $1,200. $1,200. This is going to be good. $1,200. $1,200. And it's going to be framed now at $1,200. $1,200. Do I hear $1,250? $1,250. Any going once? $1,250. $1,300. $1,300. $1,350. $1,350. Anybody? $1,350. $1,400. $1,400. Do we hear $1,400? Come on, you guys do a better job extracting money from people. You do this all the time. Okay. $1,400. $1,400. Do we hear $1,400? $1,350. $1,350. Going once. $1,350. $1,350, I'll tell you what, we've got $1,400, $1,400, $1,400, $1,500, $1,500, $1,550, $1,550, there we go, $1,550, $1,550, going once, we'll go $1,600, $1,600, $1,650, do we hear $1,650, $1,650, this is a one and only, you're not gonna ever have this again in your life. Someday, people are going to look back and see that on your wall and say, isn't that kind of like the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence on your wall right there? This is going to be $1,600, $1,650, $1,650. Anybody go $1,650? $1,650 once? Yes. $1,650. Okay, $1,700. 17. We got 17. $1,750. $1,750. Going once. $1,800. $1,800. Do we hear it? $1,800. Let's just go for $2,000. Who would like to buy this fine one-of-a-kind piece for $2,000? $2,000. Going once? There we go. $2,000. Going once? Anybody want to bid $2,100? $2,100, $2,000, going once, going twice. We have more than met our goal, my friends. Good job. Let's give them a hand. Okay, stand up. And you are? Want to make sure we get your names. Tim? Owen. Tim Owen, thank you so much. Good job.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. I tell you what, there was really quite an argument if we should do that or the raffle, the dream date with Jon Caldara, and I still think we could have. Anyway, the lovely and talented Douglas Bruce has a basket he's going to be passing around. If you have a few extra dollars and you want to be part of this educational effort, please, by all means, love for you to do this. And I've never seen money actually pried out of Douglas's hands. So that's really pretty amazing. All right, let's do some of the fun stuff, and then we're going to wrap this up. Let me introduce the sheriff to try to buy some votes with the incredible door prize. Sheriff, what is this door prize?
We have 40 magazines, 30 round magazines for an AR-15. I gotta say this. I've been dreaming of the day I can give away 30 round magazines. So I have 40 we're gonna be giving away on tickets, but before I do that, will the patrons please stand? And who is our other buyer? Tim Oil, please stand. You wanna donate it back? Thank you. Anyway, Magpul Industries up in Erie, Colorado, I put in a phone call, said I wanted to give away some door prizes. So what I'm going to do is read off tickets. And we'll go with the last three numbers. Let's start with 600. 600. Do we have a 600? Last three numbers, 600. All right. 833. 833, we got it. 690. Now, take them because after July 1, you can't do this. 690. 690. In the back? All right. 723. 723. There we go in the back of the blue shirt. Sunglasses on the hat.
I'll tell you what, if you win, please just stand up and we'll get that to you.
Looks like I got to read four numbers. All right, the last one was 7567. We have that one out, right? 7723. Now we're going 7678. 7678. There we go. 7894. 7894. Did we find somebody? All right, next, 7753. 775. Don't scratch your head when I call out a number. 6930. 6930, there we go. 6817. 6817. All right. 6891. All right, another one right there. 7625. 7625. All right, let's try 7526. 7526. All right, 6865. 6865. There we go. 6892. Oh, she won one. Okay. All right. How about 7697? 7697. All right. 7679. I like how I just switched the numbers. 7679. 7681. 7681. Bingo. 7717. 6973. Yeah, if you get it, raise your hand. 7680. There we go. 7895. You don't even have to bid on it or pay for it. 7574. 7639.
By the way, the exact same thing happened up where I live in Boulder, except it was medical marijuana. They were.
7653. 7653. 7586. 7499. Boy, there is somebody close. 6979 7662 7662 6895 6803. Your odds of winning have to be pretty good here. 6943 6943 77900. Isn't this cool, lawn sheriffs giving out magazines? I mean, seriously. Hey, Sheriff Cook and Justin, do you guys feel unsafe or threatened? I mean, that's what they say. Okay. 6756 7811 7791 7716 7719 7761. And last but not least, and before I do this, we need to thank Magpul. I told them what I was doing with these and they donated. The final number is 7745. Thank you for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it.
Hey, again, thank you all. I think that concludes our business. Please, I ask you, I beg you, remember this is a long, slow battle. We need your help. Please go to the Independence Institute booth back there and let us know who you are. Thank you so much. I just want to let folks know that the Firearms Coalition is presenting us with a check for $5 million. Yeah.